Admiral Hae-jin was having a quiet morning at the Korean Space Command when the alert came. The coffee cup in his hand almost fell as the emergency lights turned the room red. Above his desk, multiple screens lit up with warning signs. "Sir, we have unknown objects appearing past Neptune's orbit," the young officer at the radar station said. His voice shook slightly. "They're big, really big." Hae-jin put down his coffee and walked to the main screen. The objects were unlike anything he had seen before. They were shaped like arrowheads, but each one was the size of a small city. The radar showed more and more of them appearing every minute. "How many?" Hae-jin asked, keeping his voice steady even though his heart was racing. "Over 50 now, sir. And still coming." The room fell silent as everyone watched the screens. Then all the communication systems came alive at once. A message was broadcasting on every channel, in perfect English. "People of Earth," a deep voice boomed through the speakers. "We are the Rith Empire. Your planet now belongs to us. You have 24 hours to surrender. If you refuse, we will destroy your cities one by one." Hae-jin looked at the clock on the wall. It was 9:15 a.m. Korean time. Less than a day to save Earth. He pressed the emergency button that would call the Global Defense Council. Within minutes, screens around the room showed faces of military leaders from different countries. Some looked scared, others angry. A few seemed ready to give up already. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hae-jin said, "we have a situation." Commander Do-young, who had been quietly watching from the corner, stepped forward. She was known for thinking differently, and right now, they needed different. "Sir," she said, "I have an idea, but you'll need to trust me." Hae-jin nodded. "Go on." Do-young pulled up some videos on the main screen. They showed bees and hornets attacking much larger animals. "Look how these small insects fight. They don't try to match size with size. They use their numbers and speed instead." "What are you suggesting?" someone asked from the screens. "We've been building the wrong kind of ships," Do-young said. "Everyone thinks bigger is better. But nature shows us something different. A single hornet is nothing to a bear, but 1,000 hornets. That's a different story." Hae-jin's eyes widened as he understood. "Project Mosquito," he said quietly. Do-young smiled. "Exactly, sir." The other leaders looked confused. Project Mosquito was a secret program that most of them didn't know about. For years, Korea and a few other countries had been building very small, very fast warships. Ships that everyone else had laughed at for being too tiny to matter. "We have 3,000 small ships hidden in bases around the solar system," Hae-jin explained. "Each one is only as big as an old fighter jet, but they're fast, very fast, and they can work together like a swarm." The room burst into argument. Some leaders thought it was crazy to fight the alien ships with such small vessels. Others wanted to try negotiating. A few were still talking about surrender. Then the alien ships sent another message. This one showed what they could do. A beam of light shot from one of their ships and destroyed a small research station on Mars. The explosion was huge. "That's what will happen to your cities," the alien voice said. Hae-jin stood up straight. "We have 23 hours and 40 minutes, he said. "I say we show these Rith what happens when they kick a hornet's nest." Do-young was already working at her computer, sending coded messages to the hidden bases. "Sir," she said with a small smile, "the hornets are getting angry." Around the solar system, in secret bases built into asteroids and hidden on moons, lights began to come on. Small ships that looked like silver needles started powering up. Their pilots, who had trained for years for a day they hoped would never come, ran to their vessels. The Rith Empire thought they had Earth cornered. They expected surrender. Instead, they were about to learn a painful lesson about humanity. And somewhere in the vast space between Mars and Jupiter, thousands of tiny ships waited in the darkness, ready to show the aliens why even the largest creatures learned to fear the sound of buzzing wings. Dr. Sunbai stood in her underground lab, staring at the hologram of her life's work. The small warship spinning in the air before her was barely larger than the fighter jets from old war movies. But size wasn't everything. She had learned that lesson from watching documentaries about honeybees defending their hives. "Dr. Sunmei," a voice called from the doorway. "Admiral He-jin is on the line." She walked to her desk and pressed a button. He-jin's tired face appeared on the screen. "Tell me the ships are ready," he said without greeting. 3,000 ships, just as promised," Sunmei replied. She waved her hand, and a hologram changed to show the locations of their hidden bases. "We have 500 ships in the asteroid belt, 800 near Jupiter's moons, and the rest scattered in other bases. Each one is perfect." The ships were her babies. She had designed them to be small but deadly. Their engines were special. They could turn faster than anything else in space. The weapons were small too, but when thousands of ships fired at once, even small weapons became dangerous. "Show me the new features," He-jin said. Sunmei pressed some buttons, and a new hologram appeared. It showed how the ships could fly together. "See these patterns? We copied them from insects. When bees attack, they don't just fly straight. They move in special ways that confuse their enemies." She pointed to another image. "And look here. The ships can talk to each other without using regular signals. The aliens won't be able to block them or listen in." He-jin nodded slowly. "What about the shields? Their weapons are strong." "That's the clever part," Sunmei said, smiling. She had worked on this problem for years. "Our shields are different. Instead of trying to stop their weapons completely, we let them bend around our ships, like water flowing around a rock." She showed him a test video. A huge energy beam hit one of her ships, but instead of exploding, the ship seemed to slit through the energy like a fish through water. "It doesn't work forever," she warned, "but it gives us enough time to strike back." Just then, another screen lit up. It showed the alien ships moving closer to Earth. They were huge, like floating cities made of metal. Next to them, Sunmei's ships would look like tiny insects. But that was the point. "What about the pilots?" He-jin asked. "Are they ready?" Sunmei switched to another screen. It showed hundreds of pilots in training rooms, practicing with simulators. They had been training for years, learning to fly their ships like parts of a single body. "Captain Jeho has them ready," she said. "They've practiced every day. They know the ships better than they know their own homes." He-jin looked at the clock. 20 hours left before the aliens' deadline. "There's something else," Sunmei said quietly. She pressed one more button. A new hologram showed something that made He-jin's eyes widen. "Is that what I think it is?" Sunmei nodded. "A weakness. See these spots on their big ships. The energy readings are different there. I think that's where their shield generators are. If we can hit those spots with enough small ships at once, their shields would fail," He-jin finished. "Exactly. They built their ships to fight other big ships. They never thought about thousands of tiny ones attacking together." He-jin stood straighter. "How soon can we launch?" "The ships are ready now. Captain Jeho can start moving them whenever you give the order." He-jin looked at the images of the alien ships again. They were still coming, still thinking they had Earth beaten. They didn't know about the surprises hiding in the darkness of space. "Start warming up the engines," he ordered. "But keep them dark until I give the signal. Let the aliens think we're afraid. Let them think we're going to surrender." Sunmei smiled as she sent the orders. All around the solar system, in hidden bases carved into asteroids and moons, thousands of small ships began to wake up. Their engines hummed quietly, their weapons charged slowly, and their pilots climbed aboard. The Rith Empire was about to learn why you should never underestimate small things that work together, especially when those small things were designed by someone who had spent her whole life studying how tiny creatures could defeat giant enemies. The Hornets were getting ready to swarm. Captain Jeho sat in his tiny ship, checking the systems one last time. His vessel was small, about the size of an old Earth sports car, but it was packed with technology. The screen in front of him showed hundreds of green dots. Each dot was another ship just like his, hidden among the asteroids. "All pilots, sound off," he said into his radio. One by one, the other pilots reported in. Their voices were calm, but Jeho could hear the excitement underneath. They had trained for this moment for years. Lieutenant Ta-One's voice came through clearly. "AI systems are all green, Captain. The swarm computers are talking to each other perfectly." He paused. "The aliens still haven't spotted us." Jeho smiled. Of course they hadn't. The Rith Empire's big ships were looking for big threats. Their scanners were built to spot large warships, not tiny ones hiding in the shadows of rocks. "Myray, how are the weapons?" Jeho asked. "All ships report weapons hot," Myray answered from her control center. "The new targeting systems are working just like Dr. Sunmai promised. We can hit anything we want, even at full speed." Jeho looked at his clock. 18 hours left until the aliens' deadline. But they wouldn't wait that long. The element of surprise was too important. "Begin Operation Shadow Dance," Jeho ordered. "Remember your training. Move exactly like we practiced." Across the asteroid belt, hundreds of small ships started to move. They kept their engines dim and stayed close to the rocks. To anyone watching, they might have looked like pieces of space junk drifting in the dark. The alien fleet was massive. Their smallest ship was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their largest ones could have held entire cities inside them. But they had a weakness. They were slow. Like huge ocean ships, they took a long time to turn or change direction. "Look at them," Ta-One said over the radio. "They're not even in a defensive formation. They think we're helpless." Jeho watched as more of his ships joined the gathering swarm. They moved in patterns copied from nature, the same ways that bees and birds flew together without crashing. The AI systems helped them stay in perfect formation. An alert flashed on his screen. One of the alien ships had launched some smaller vessels, probably scouts looking for signs of Earth's defenses. "Hold positions," Jeho ordered. "Let them pass by." The scout ships flew right past their hiding spots. These alien ships were still big, each one the size of a passenger plane. They didn't notice the hundreds of tiny human ships watching them. "Captain," Myray called suddenly, "the main alien fleet is charging weapons. They're going to attack one of Earth's space stations." Jeho pressed a button, connecting him to Admiral Hijin back on Earth. "Sir, they're moving early. Request permission to begin Phase 1. There was a pause. Then Hijin's voice came through. "Permission granted, Captain. Show them what Hornets can do." Jeho took a deep breath. This was the moment they had trained for. "All ships, power up engines. Form attack pattern Delta. Remember, stay together, stay fast, and don't let them predict where you'll be next." 1,000 engines lit up at once. The small ships rose from their hiding places, like angry insects defending their home. On the alien ship's scanners, it must have looked like space itself was coming alive with movement. "Here they come," someone shouted. The alien scout ships had finally spotted them. They turned around fast, rushing back to warn their fleet. But the human ships were faster, much faster. "Let's show them how Earth fights," Jeho said. "Swarm pattern Alpha. Target the scout ships first." The human vessels moved like a flock of starlings, flowing through space in beautiful, unpredictable patterns. The alien scouts tried to target them, but the small ships were too quick, too nimble. Mayray's voice was excited. First shots fired. 3 scout ships disabled. The battle had begun. As his ship streaked through space toward the main alien fleet, Jeho thought about bees defending their hive. The aliens were about to learn that size wasn't everything. Sometimes the smallest enemies were the most dangerous, especially when they worked together. The Rith Empire's flagship, World Ender, was a massive ship. Its commander, Supreme Leader Val, stood at the main window, looking at the tiny human ships with amusement. They were so small that they looked like dots against the darkness of space. "These humans think they can fight us with toys." Val laughed. The other alien officers joined in. "Show them what real power looks like." But their laughter died quickly when the first wave of human ships reached them. Captain Jeho's voice rang through all the human ships. "Execute Operation Wasp's Nest. Break into groups of 50. Remember your training." The small human ships split apart like streams of water. They moved in perfect patterns, flowing around the huge alien vessels. The Rith Empire's gunners tried to shoot them, but hitting the human ships was like trying to hit angry bees with a stick. "Impossible," Val shouted as another volley of shots missed completely. "How are they moving like that?" On his own small ship, Jeho watched his screen with pride. The training was paying off. His pilots flew their ships just like Dr. Sunmai had taught them, like insects protecting their home. "Target their main guns," Jeho ordered. Pattern 7. 50 human ships dove at the world ender at once. They spun and twisted, avoiding the aliens' defensive fire. Their own weapons might be small, but they knew exactly where to hit. May Ray's voice came over the radio. "Direct hits on World Ender's port guns. They're offline." The alien crew couldn't believe what they were seeing. Their mighty ship, the pride of the Rith fleet, was being hurt by vessels smaller than its rescue boats. "Group 2, attack their sensors," Jeho commanded. Group 3, hit their engine ports. More human ships streamed past the alien defenses. They moved like dancers, each group knowing exactly where the others would be. There were no collisions, no mistakes, just perfect coordination. "My lord," an alien officer shouted to Val. "2 more of our ships report heavy damage. These humans, they're finding all our weak spots." Val slammed his fist on his command chair. "Launch all fighters. Destroy these insects." Hundreds of alien fighter ships poured out of the larger vessels. They were bigger than the human ships and more heavily armed, but that was their weakness. They were too big, too slow. Lieutenant Ta Wan's voice was calm on the radio. "New targets coming in. Switching to defensive pattern beta." The human ships changed formation instantly. Now they moved like a school of fish, splitting apart and coming together so quickly it was hard to follow. The alien fighters couldn't get a lock on them. "Watch this," Jeho said with a smile. "Mirai, show them our special trick." Mirai pressed some buttons, and suddenly all the human ships fired at once. Thousands of small energy beams hit the same spots on different alien ships. It was like being stung by 1,000 bees at the same time. 3 alien fighters exploded. 4 more lost power and drifted away. The mighty world ender itself shook as dozens of precise hits damaged its systems. "This is impossible," Val screamed. They're just tiny ships." But size didn't matter anymore. Jeho's pilots proved that with every passing minute, they flew circles around the bigger ships, hitting weak points that Dr. Sunmai had found, then darting away before the aliens could respond. "Status report," Jeho called out. "We've lost 12 ships," Ta Wan replied. "But we've disabled 6 of their capital ships and 23 fighters. Their formation is breaking apart." Jeho nodded. The plan was working. The Rith Empire had never fought an enemy like this before. They didn't know how to handle ships that fought like angry hornets defending their nest. "All groups, prepare for Phase 2, Jeho ordered. "Let's show them what else these tiny ships can do." As his words ended, a new wave of human ships appeared from behind Mars. The real battle was about to begin, and the aliens were already afraid. Size, as they were learning, wasn't everything. Sometimes the smallest enemy was the most dangerous one, especially when that enemy fought like angry hornets protecting their home. Engineer Yun Seo watched from her control station as the battle unfolded. The screens around her showed thousands of small dots, human ships, moving in perfect formation. They looked beautiful, like a dance in space. Shield status. She called out to her team. Shields working at full power, her assistant replied. Dr. Sunma's design is perfect. The alien weapons can't lock onto our ships properly. Yun Seo smiled. She had helped design these special shields. They didn't just block attacks. They bent the energy around the ships, like water flowing around rocks in a stream. In space, Captain Jaiho's voice came through all the radios. Begin attack pattern echo. Target their command centers. The human ships moved as one. They flew between the huge alien vessels like birds flying through trees. The aliens tried to hit them with their big guns, but it was useless. The human ships were too fast, too small, and their shields made them even harder to hit. On the World Ender, Supreme Leader Val was no longer laughing. How? He shouted. How are they doing this? His officers had no answer. Their scanners couldn't track the human ships properly. Every time they thought they had a target, the shields would bend their sensor readings, making the ships seem to be somewhere else. Another hit. Mei Rei's excited voice announced. 3 more alien ships have lost their main weapons. The human ships worked in perfect teams. While one group distracted the aliens, another would slip through their defenses. They found every weak spot that Dr. Sunmai had identified. Each hit was small, but thousands of small hits added up quickly. Yun Seo checked her readings. Hull damage on alien vessels is now at 40%. Their shields are failing. The alien ships tried to stay together, to protect each other, but that only made them easier targets. The human ships flew circles around them, like angry bees around a bear that had found their hive. Their ships are too big, Yun Seo said to her team. They can't turn fast enough to catch us, and their weapons are too slow to hit our small ships. She watched as another group of human ships dove at an alien destroyer. Their shots hit the same spot at the same time, like hundreds of needles striking together. The destroyer's shields flickered and died. Look, someone shouted. They're trying to change their formation. The alien fleet was spreading out, trying to give themselves more room to fight. But that was exactly what Captain Jaiho had been waiting for. Now, Jaiho's voice commanded. Pattern Omega. Split their fleet apart. The human ships moved like a swarm, dividing into smaller groups. Each group picked one alien ship and surrounded it. The huge vessels looked like giants being attacked by clouds of angry insects. Yun Seo's screens lit up with new data. Their shield generators are overheating. They can't handle so many small hits in different places. The alien ships started firing wildly, trying to hit anything they could. But their big weapons were useless against such small, fast targets. It was like trying to swat flies with a tree trunk. Engineering team, Jaiho called. Status report on our shields. Yun Seo checked her readings quickly. All systems green, Captain. The aliens haven't managed to take down a single shield yet. Our ships are still at full strength. The battle had turned into exactly what Dr. Sunmai had planned. A dance of death. The human ships moved like dancers, flowing around the alien vessels in perfect patterns. Each movement was planned, each attack precise. From her station, Yun Seo could see the whole battle. The mighty Rith Empire, with their huge ships and powerful weapons, was being defeated by ships smaller than their escape pods. Remember what Dr. Sunmai always said, Yun Seo told her team. Size isn't everything. The smallest bee can still hurt the biggest bear, if it knows where to sting. Above them, the dance continued. The human ships kept moving, kept striking, kept protecting their home. And the aliens learned a hard lesson. Sometimes the smallest enemy was the deadliest one, especially when that enemy turned weakness into strength and fought with both brain and heart. Commander Du Young stood in the control room on Mars base, watching the battle on the big screen. She had waited for this moment. While the alien fleet was busy with Captain Jaiho's ships, they had forgotten to watch their backs. All ships ready, Commander. Captain Minji reported from her lid ship, hidden on the dark side of Mars. We have 800 ships, all powered up and ready to fly. Do Young smiled. The aliens thought they were fighting Earth's only defense force. They were wrong. Begin Operation Crossfire, she ordered. Show them what happens when you get caught between two swarms. Captain Minji's voice was strong and clear. All ships, launch. From the dark side of Mars, hundreds of fresh human ships rose into space. They moved like a cloud of angry wasps, heading straight for the back of the alien fleet. Supreme Leader Val, still trying to fight Jai-Ho's ships, didn't see them coming until it was too late. "My lord," an alien officer screamed. "More human ships. Behind us." Val turned just in time to see Minji's ships slam into his fleet's rear guard. The new human ships weren't tired from hours of fighting. They were fresh and ready for battle. 3 more alien ships disabled, Minji reported happily. They never saw us coming. Do Young watched as her plan worked perfectly. The alien fleet was now caught between 2 swarms of human ships. If they turned to fight Minji's group, Jai-Ho's ships would hit them from behind. If they kept fighting Jai-Ho, Minji would tear them apart from the back. "This is impossible," Val shouted as more of his ships reported heavy damage. Where did they hide all these ships? The answer was simple: in plain sight. The human ships were so small that the aliens had never thought to look for them. They had hidden in asteroid fields, behind moons, and in the shadow of Mars itself. "Target their command ships," Du Young ordered. "Use Dr. Sunmi's attack plan." Minji's ships formed new patterns, ones they had practiced for months. They flew in tight circles around the alien command ships, hitting the weak spots in their shields again and again. "Their formation is breaking," Jai-Ho called out. "They're trying to retreat." But retreat wasn't possible anymore. The human ships had surrounded the alien fleet completely. Everywhere, the big ships turned. They found swarms of tiny vessels waiting for them. "Focus all fire on the world ender," Du Young commanded. "It's time to end this." Both swarms of human ships turned toward the alien flagship. They moved like 2 rivers coming together, flowing around the alien defenses as if they weren't even there. Val watched in horror as thousands of small ships surrounded his mighty vessel. "Full power to shields," he ordered. "Fire everything we have." But it was too late. The human ships had learned all the World Ender's weaknesses. They knew exactly where to hit, how to slip past its defenses, and how to take it down. "Now," Du Young shouted. "All ships, fire." Thousands of energy beams hit the World Ender at the same time. Its shields flickered once, twice, and then died completely. The mighty flagship of the Rith Empire floated helpless in space, surrounded by ships smaller than its own rescue boats. "Commander," Minji called, "they're sending a signal. They want to talk about surrender." Do Young looked at the screen showing the battle. The alien fleet that had seemed so powerful just hours ago was now broken and defeated. Their mighty ships were damaged or disabled, their confidence shattered by an enemy they had thought too small to matter. "Tell them we'll accept their surrender," Du Young said. "But first, they need to understand something. Earth isn't weak just because we're small. Sometimes being small is what makes you strong." As the human ships continued their dance around the defeated alien fleet, Du Young thought about how simple the solution had been. The aliens had expected Earth to fight like they did, with huge ships and powerful weapons. Instead, humanity had fought like nature's smallest but most effective warriors, like hornets defending their nest. Admiral Hee-jin watched from Korean Space Command as panic spread through the alien fleet. On his main screen, he could see the mighty Rith ships trying to escape. But there was nowhere to go. The human swarms had trapped them completely. "Sir," a young officer called out, "the aliens are sending messages to each other. Their communication system is falling apart." Hee-jin nodded. This was what he had hoped for. When scared, even the strongest enemy could make mistakes. And right now, the Rith Empire was very, very scared. "More messages coming in," the officer said. They're ships. They're arguing with each other. Some want to keep fighting. Others want to run away. Captain Jaiho's voice came through the radio. Admiral, their ships are breaking formation. They're not working together anymore. This was the moment He-Jin had waited for. When bees attacked, they didn't just sting. They caused confusion and panic. Now the human ships were doing the same thing. Begin Phase 3, He-Jin ordered. Cut off their escape routes. Don't let any ship get away. The human swarms moved like they had practiced. Small groups of ships positioned themselves behind every alien vessel. If an alien ship tried to run, the human ships would chase it down. Admiral, Mirai called excitedly. We've taken out their main communication array. The World Ender can't talk to the other ships anymore. Without orders from their leader, the alien fleet fell into chaos. Some ships tried to fire at the humans. Others tried to escape. Some just stopped moving, not knowing what to do. They're like a body without a head, He-Jin said quietly, just as we planned. He watched as more alien ships lost power or gave up. The mighty Rith Empire, which had thought Earth would be an easy target, was falling apart in front of him. Sir, Commander Du Young reported from Mars base. 3 more alien ships just surrendered. Their captains say they won't fight without orders from the World Ender. The human ships kept moving, kept pressing their advantage. They flew in perfect patterns, cutting off any chance of escape. Like sheepdogs herding sheep, they guided the alien ships into one tight group. Send the message, He-Jin ordered. All across space, every alien ship received the same words. Your fleet is defeated. Your ships are damaged. Your leader is cut off. Surrender now, and we will spare your lives. For a moment, there was silence. Then the responses started coming in. 5 ships surrendering. 8 more giving up. Another group powering down weapons. One by one, the mighty ships of the Rith Empire gave up. Their crews had never seen anything like these human tactics. They had no defense against an enemy that fought like angry insects protecting their home. Supreme Leader Val's voice finally came through, shaking with anger and fear. How? How did you defeat us? Our ships are 100 times bigger than yours. He-Jin stood up straight as he answered. Size isn't everything. Supreme Leader, a single ant is tiny, but a colony of ants can take down creatures thousands of times their size. We learned from nature. You learned from pride. He looked at his screens again. The battle was over. Humanity had won, not with size or power, but with speed, teamwork, and clever thinking. You thought we would fight like you, He-Jin continued, with big ships and powerful weapons. Instead, we fought like Earth's smallest warriors. And now you know why even the largest animals fear the sound of buzzing wings. Across the solar system, human ships surrounded the defeated alien fleet. The mighty Rith Empire had learned a hard lesson. Sometimes the smallest enemy was the most dangerous one, especially when that enemy fought with Earth's wisdom, using the lessons learned from millions of years of evolution. The age of giant warships was over. The age of the swarm had begun. 1 month after the Great Battle, Admiral He-Jin stood at a large window in the new Global Space Defense Center. Below him, hundreds of the small warships were returning home. Their hulls shone in the sunlight like tiny stars. Beautiful, aren't they? Dr. Sunmai said, walking up beside him. And to think people laughed at us when we first proposed building such small ships. He-Jin smiled. Nobody was laughing now. News of Earth's victory had spread across the galaxy. Other alien races had heard how humanity's tiny ships had defeated the mighty Rith Empire. The alien prisoners still can't believe it, Commander Du Young said, joining them at the window. They keep asking to see our real warships. They think we must have bigger ones hidden somewhere. Just then, Captain Jaiho and Captain Minji entered the room. They had become heroes after the battle, their names known across Earth and beyond. You should hear what the Alien Academy teachers are saying, Jaiho said with a laugh. They're calling it the Hornet Doctrine. They're teaching our tactics to their students. Minji nodded. Every space fleet in the galaxy is building smaller ships now. The age of giant warships is over. Earth changed everything. Through another window, they could see engineers building new ships. These ones were even smaller and faster than before. Dr. Sunmai had made many improvements based on what they had learned during the battle. The best part, Sunmai said, is that these ships are cheap to build. We can make 50 small ships for the cost of one big one. And 50 small ships working together are more dangerous than any big ship. A young officer rushed into the room. Admiral, we're getting messages from other alien races. They want to learn from us. Hajin read the messages on his tablet. Alien civilizations that had once looked down on Earth now wanted to be allies. They wanted to learn humanity's secrets of swarm warfare. Should we teach them? Du Yum asked. Some things, Hajin replied, but not everything. We'll keep the best tricks for ourselves, just in case. They watched as more ships returned home. Each one was smaller than an old Earth fighter jet, but together they had changed the way space battles would be fought forever. The Rith Empire's ships are still in our custody, Minji reported. Their crews keep saying the same thing. They never thought such small ships could be so dangerous. That was their mistake, Sunmai said proudly. They forgot that nature's deadliest creatures aren't always the biggest ones. Just then, Yunseo came running in with exciting news. The new shield tests are complete. The improvements work even better than we hoped. No weapon can lock onto our ships now. Everyone gathered around her tablet to see the test results. The new shields made the ships almost impossible to hit. They were like ghosts in space. And that's not all, she continued. The new engines are ready too. These ships will be twice as fast as the ones we used in the battle. Heijin looked at his team with pride. Each person had played a vital part in saving Earth. Du Young with her clever strategy, Sun Mai with her brilliant designs, Jia-ho and Minji with their brave leadership, Yun Seo with her amazing engineering. Together, they had proven that humanity didn't need the biggest ships or the strongest weapons. They just needed to be clever, work together, and learn from the world around them. The galaxy has changed, Heijin said quietly. And we changed it, not with size or power, but with wisdom and teamwork. Outside the window, the last group of ships flew past. They moved together perfectly, like a flock of birds heading home. Their victory had taught the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Never underestimate the small ones, especially when they work together. Because sometimes the smallest creatures are the ones you need to fear most. Just ask anyone who has ever disturbed a hornet's nest.